This is something that I've been thinking about a lot as an academic, and then our whole team has been thinking about it at Motif, and that is the idea that we often think about mental health as something that's almost intangible. Like it's an interaction that we have with another human being. It's somehow something that might even be outside the realm of science. When we think about mental health disorders, we know fundamentally these are biological problems. Right, it's activity in the brain that's it's overactive, underactive. If it's a biological problem, there can be a biological solution. Mental health, it manifests in a way that really affects the way that we think about interacting with other humans, but fundamentally it's a biological disorder that should be no different than cancers. And so we should be able to come up with engineering or technological solutions. And that's what we're working on at Motif. It's the idea that there are brain circuits that are underactive, and we can use electronic devices to increase that activity. What we're developing as our first product is a DOT. It stands for something, but really that's not important. I'm an academic, so I know how to make clever acronyms out of things. It's a really small thing that gets implanted in the bone over the brain. Unlike some other neurotech companies that like to stick things in the brain, we put devices in the bone and never come in contact with the brain tissue. That allows us to be a 20-minute outpatient procedure. You go home that day, it's invisible. And from that position in the bone, we can stimulate a specific circuit associated with executive function. If you know people who might suffer from depression, for example, that illness is manifest by an inability to initiate action. It's not like people don't know that they need to get out of the bed in the morning and take a shower and call their friends. They physically cannot do that because their biology doesn't let them, because their brain is stuck in a circuit that prevents them from initiating activities. And so by stimulating the executive function network, the central executive network, CEN, we can help people regain the ability to initiate actions in the world. So it is an electronic device. Think of it like a medical device, sort of like a pacemaker, but one that can engage the brain circuits associated with mental health. And we can also record activity, and we believe we'll be able to create biomarkers. I think what we're going to see a transition to is from treating mental health disorders based on patient surveys and interviews with their psychiatrists to having a data-driven way that we can address neural circuits in the same way we have interventional cardiology, and you have devices and drugs, and you have physicians who are helping you recover. We've worked with a group of lived experience advisors, people who have either themselves suffered from treatment-resistant depression, or they have loved ones who've suffered from treatment-resistant depression. And what we learned is that the illness is so debilitating that they are looking for anything to help them. This is what I think is like a common misconception, is that we hear about technology and the first thing we think about is like, oh, it's like an implant or whatever. When you talk to people who suffer from these conditions, the first thing they ask you is this going to get me better? But what they care about are outcomes. And I think that when we look at the future of technology, we should be looking at what kind of benefit are we going to create for people. And if that benefit is so great, and it's a 20-minute outpatient procedure, or even if it's a more complicated neurosurgical procedure, when we create outcomes that are dramatic and life-saving for these people, that's where we're going to see adoption. So I would love to see the conversation about how can we make our technology so good that people can't wait to have that opportunity to live a better life. Yeah, this is a really tough one, and every time I give a panel, someone's gonna come up to me and ask this question, so it may be on your mind anyway. Like, it's wild to think about a future where it could be possible with devices to modulate mental states. The ethical implications of that are not lost on us. In fact, we think about it every day. And inevitably, someone is like, whoa, like this sounds like the beginning of a Black Mirror episode, like hold the phone, like stop. What we usually come back with is like, yes, there are potentials for misuse. At the same time, suicide rates among the youth have increased 140% over the last 10 years. Can we ethically not do something about that? And I think the answer is no, right? Like, we owe it to people who, through no fault of their own, are born with a mental health disorder. It's invisible, it's a life-threatening condition, and we're losing these people. So can we not develop this technology? I think the answer is no. We absolutely have to do everything that we can. Now, we have to do it responsibly. We have to put guardrails on this. We obviously don't want to go into that dystopian future, but I think the answer is not to sit by and do nothing about it.